Hello, everybody, and welcome to our review of The Irishman, the latest film from legendary director Martin Scorsese, hitting theaters in limited release on Friday, and then hitting Netflix, new release model, hitting Netflix on November 27th. But the theatrical run is what is going to qualify it for the Oscars, for which many people are pegging this to be perhaps a frontrunner.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, it really, first of all, it's sort of got, it's a tough thing because we talk a lot about movies that are sort of built to be Oscar movies. And I think that would be, and I know you're not, but I think that would be a very dismissive and inaccurate way to look at this film, because that is not what this feels like at all. It is not sort of built with that in mind.
A ploy to get awards. Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, this is very much from the heart and soul of Martin Scorsese. In a weird way, this is the most Scorsese film of all Scorsese films because it's got all of his various styles in one movie.
Yeah.
It's really extraordinary. It's not the full dark grit, and I don't really like that word, but I mean literally cinematic grit of Taxi Driver or Mean Streets or Raging Bull. It's not the gloss and kind of celebratory look at these gangsters. They're rock stars of Goodfellas, and it's certainly not quite as meditative as Silence, but it's some combination of all of them. We just talked about this. This is a movie that presents as if it's very simply told. That's got about 26 layers. You need to see this 3.5-hour movie. Prepare yourself. I think twice, 3 times.
Yeah, it is. The more that I think about it, the more I actually admire this film. I think this could, and I hope that we have so many more. I hope we have so many more Martin Scorsese movies left.
Yeah.
But I think that perhaps when we look back on his filmography as a whole, when people look at and they say the early part of his career, you know, you look at Mean Streets and Taxi Driver. The middle part of his career, you're looking at Goodfellas and The Age of Innocence and Casino. I think this may end up being the quintessential film of late era Martin Scorsese, because this is it both exemplifies his former work, it comments on his former work. It's a meditation on other movies without directly being a meditation on it. It's almost like it's like almost like I don't want to sound too pretentious here, but it's almost like a Fellini-esque looking back from a filmmaker on his own career and thinking about that and those characters and how they've been portrayed. Like, I think it is such a deep film, but also at the same time, it is long. It felt long in the sense that, like, if you're watching anything for 3.5 hours, you're going to be conscious of the fact that you are there for that long. However, it is funny. Every actor that is in it is at A game, top form. From De Niro to Pacino to Pesci, so good to see Pesci on screen. This
is his best performance ever.
It's up
for
there.
Me. Pesci.
I think that Pacino, it's the best performance I've seen him turn in years.
Yes.
I think that as we're talking about awards, if there's one in the cast that's going to break out potentially for serious Oscar consideration, my money would be first and foremost on Pacino, who plays Jimmy Hoffa in this film. I think he's fantastic in this movie, and it's like hanging out in this world. And sometimes you get to the end of a scene and it may not have driven the plot anywhere, but it is just to inform you about who these characters are and what this world is. And it's just like taking a long, slow bath in this world of Scorsese. And then you get to the end and it's very meaningful. Yeah.
So Scorsese, for me, and we've talked about this a lot before, for me, he is, particularly of his generation, the most consistent filmmaker alive today, meaning, of course, not everything is 100%, and there's probably some things in there that aren't your favorites. But every film he makes is a good film or a great film. I don't believe he's really made, in my opinion, a bad movie. And you may not love it, right? But it may not be for you. And my favorites of his are not always the favorites. You know, I've talked about this before. I love After Hours, and I love The King of Comedy, among others. But he's also a filmmaker that's willing to venture outside of his own. He doesn't really have a narrow lane. You know, he explores and he tries different genres. This movie, the structure of it is that a man played by Robert De Niro, a
Frank
hitman,
Sheeran,
Frank Sheeran. It's based on a book, is looking back on his life. And he's a hitman. They call him like, you
paint houses.
You paint houses,
Yeah.
meaning with blood.
Yeah.
And that's the euphemism. And he's looking back on his life and the meaning of his life. And I get the same feeling as you, Dan, that in that framework, Scorsese is looking at his life and the meaning of his life on film and as a filmmaker and what he's brought into the world. It's without being too meta or on the nose. It is a conversation, I think, not between him and his critics, of those who would have said that he sort of celebrated and made a fantasy out of gangster life. But between him and himself. It feels more of a reconciliation between him and himself, because there's nothing in here. It's very mundane, the murder in this movie. The violence is incredibly mundane and clear. It's not overly brutalized, it's not celebrated, and it's not glossed over. It's slice of life, and the life happens to be one of murder. And it's like a movie that I think is also asking the question, when do we decide a life has value and is worth investigating? Because throughout the film, people are dispatched of, or we're told they're going to be dispatched of. And in one case, a very non-consequential character, is dispatched of in such a way that you could tell that body would never be found.
Yeah.
But we don't care about that character. We care about Hoffa because he's famous.
Right.
And I think, without painting too fine a point on it, the movie's asking you, why do you particularly care about, let's say that this is true, this is what happened to Jimmy Hoffa, we don't know. What does that answer for you? And if the reveal is that it looked a lot like all these other deaths, what's the difference? It's a really deep movie.
Yeah, and it builds up to, it has sort of different stages, but the third act in particular, there's a sequence that's maybe half an hour long, where it's building up to an event, but it's building up to it not not like in Goodfellas, where you've got Ray Liotta driving around, he looks out and there's a helicopter going around, and he's got to pick up the thing and to cook the meatballs, and he's going to pick up the sister. It's just like all of these events, and it becomes cacophonous, and it ends with the big
Not
raid.
at all.
It's very. I don't even know if there's, which is odd for Scorsese. I don't even think there's music.
No, there's not. It's pointedly not.
It's just very kind of matter of fact.
Yes.
It's this person, and to the point you're like, but the culmination of it, as you mentioned, is not some big event. It's over like that.
Yeah. It's so fast.
And it's where the movie turns at the beginning of that sequence to the end. It's where the movie turns to explore what the real meaning of all of this is, and this life. And this is the life that he's told through Sam Roth's scene in Casino, and through Henry Hill and Goodfellas. All real life are based on real life figures. But those films felt like a middle-aged filmmaker telling the story of older men or people who were, entering new stages. This feels like somebody who's an older filmmaker like Scorsese looking at this and actually thinking about, like, we talk about going to jail, but what are the actual consequences of this life?
Right. And you see it. And this is the other interesting thing about this film. For Goodfellas, my take on that is that for Henry Hill, he looked at these guys as rock stars. And so Scorsese made a film that showed us to what it was like to be in Henry Hill's perspective, of admiring, of wanting to be like, of that being aspirational, and then being a part of it. And the feeling of, what if I tomorrow got to walk on a stage and have 100,000 people be there to see, like, what would that feel like? And that's for me what Goodfellas is. This is a movie that really looks at, like, the mundane nature of violence and how it emerges and why it emerges, and the decision-making process around who or who will not be killed and why. And sometimes it's just an accident or a misunderstanding. And you see his life eroding, because the structure of this film is also really interesting. There's flashbacks within flashbacks within flashbacks.
Yeah.
They're able to do that, of course, because of de-aging technology, which, works for the most part. But what he is losing is in relationship to his family. You see that throughout. That's a thread that keeps coming back, that the consequences of his actions are not just felt because he went to jail or at the end of his life. They're felt throughout his life.
And what I liked about it is, again, contrasting it with, and I don't think it's unfair because I think Scorsese himself is made this as almost a third act to these movies. But when you look at the domestic life in Goodfellas or in Casino, there are always these huge scenes of confrontation, these huge scenes where you see the family break up. Throughout this film, it happens in the background.
Yeah. And it's always happening.
And it's always happening. And it's not till you get to the end that you look back and you realize the culmination of everything that's been building up for this movie. This is the first movie where in the crime genre from Scorsese where I got to the end of it and I felt like he pitied those characters.
I did too, and I also feel like he pitied particularly the apathy that exists, because there's the most intimate relationship in the film is between Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, and it's very close and it's extremely intimate, but you get the feeling, I think what falls like into sharp contrast at the end of the film is who they are. They both seek redemption in this particular way, but it's inaccessible to De Niro's character. Like, he can't get there because he's not capable on a human level of that kind of connection. And that's just kind of heartbreaking. And in contrast, there's this other character, his daughter, who you see the evolution of their relationship and the de-evolution of their relationship throughout. But it's very, very subtle.
Yeah.
And that same lack and inability is what allows him to be a murderer, but which disconnects him from every good thing you'd actually want in life.
And it even goes down to the casting. Anna Paquin plays his daughter grown up, and you see her.
Why
and you're
is
like,
Anna Paquin playing this tiny
role? But then you realize it's because, and I think it's smart on the part of Scorsese and the casting directors for the film to cast a face that we know, because it just underscores the importance of the fact that this character is brushed to the side and ignored. By the way, it is largely a three-hander between De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino.
No, Pacino's great.
But I'm saying those three are great, but also so many great: Harvey Keitel, Ray Romano, Jesse Plemons, Bobby Cannavale, in and out throughout the duration of the film. Also, I mean, it's a ensemble Scorsese picture, so the acting is uniformly fantastic.
I mean, this will be shown in acting classes forever, but I think you're right. I took away the same feeling because I feel like in the middle of this, as he's commenting on kind of his career, he's also a little bit commenting on, in my mind, through the lens of Hoffa, who, like, we've wondered about this for years. If you know who he is, this has been a massive mystery for years, but this is one guy who died among many, 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 many people who died in sort of by the hand of the mob. And so I feel like he's also, by casting Anna Paquin and some other famous faces in smaller roles, also, you're right, like, you immediately have a connection to that character, but it's a comment on, well, why do we care about this one? Why this person and not that one?
Why that daughter and not the other daughter?
Exactly.
Or his wife?
Why not his wife?
Yeah.
Because she's famous.
Yeah.
And it's really a condemnation in some ways of when we choose to be apathetic towards our fellow man and when we don't.
Yeah. This film, as we mentioned, is part of it was largely happened because Netflix put up the money for. We should mention that there is, as has been advertised, extensive de-aging that's gone on throughout. Honestly, most of the movie, particularly in Robert De Niro's character, I will say I noticed it for the first 5 minutes or so. It was a little distracting, but because it is so consistently in the film, after a while, I did not notice it anymore. So
the youngest version of De Niro is where I really
but that's luckily not.
It's a short
much.
scene.
Yeah, it's short.
Yeah, it didn't really work. The rest of it does.
Yeah. So, but Netflix put up the money for this. That's why it will be largely seen, I think, probably by most people on Netflix. But it is going to be in select theaters starting this Friday. I know I'm a broken record, but I will say that Scorsese does still, even though I'm sure he knew this would be on Netflix, engineer and produce his movies to be seen on the big screen, orally, visually. If you have access to The Irishman at a theater on a big screen, I would so heavily, as I did with Roma and so many other films, encourage you to seek it out, because I also think that watching at home, particularly this movie of this length and of the pace and tempo of it, I think it sort of works a spell under you while you're watching it in a dark theater on a big screen that perhaps may not be as strong at home, where you've got distractions in the phone, and then you can pause it and come back to it. I think it's a different experience.
I think it is. I will say, just one final thought on Pacino's Hoffa, is that if you want to see the embodiment of reckless, self-destructive hubris, it is this character.
Yeah.
And it's really an extraordinary portrayal of that. I mean, God, you just want to shake him a couple of different times, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I would agree that my concern, I think he very smartly, I think this movie is pretty amazing, because I think he very smartly built it so that it would work really beautifully on a big screen, but it's intimate enough also that it would work on a smaller screen. That said, my concern is, if you're at home, it's a 3.5-hour movie, you might allow yourself to hop on your phone, to take a quick break, to watch it in pieces. And I don't think it serves the movie or your experience to do that. No. Because he's letting these moments play out that feel like there's this, first of all, it's really funny. It's meditative while being very entertaining. Right. But, does this matter? It all matters, because this is just about life and human nature and human beings and relationships. So these things that you think don't matter, why do these moments matter? Why do they matter more or less?
Yeah, and cumulatively at the end, I think
it really comes together.
It comes together.
Yeah.
So if you do watch at home, and I think, there's something also to be said for the fact that because of Netflix, it will also be accessible to a lot of people that it might not be. Which is great. But, I would encourage you to allow yourself the time and the patience, frankly, to sit and watch this, because it's one of my favorite movies of the year, one of the best movies I think of the year, and something really special from Martin Scorsese.
I couldn't agree more. The more I think about this movie, the more I like it. I'm kind of blown away by it, to be honest. But I don't want to set that up in the wrong way. It's subtle.
Right. Yeah, it's not a huge sweeping, even if you like Goodfellas and Casino. Yeah. This is a movie both of the same and of a very different type.
Yes.
So big recommendation for The Irishman, hitting select theaters on Friday, hitting Netflix on November 27th. Seek it out, find it, watch it. I hope you enjoy it.
Do it.
I enjoyed this, Roth. This was fun.
I really did. Yeah. The movie or this?
Both.
Me too.
Both.
Yeah.
I hope we get the chance to review another Martin Scorsese film together.
Me too.
And just in general.
I know. I hope he just keeps making movies, man.
I hope he does too. I think he will.
Yeah.
Until I hope he's immortal, honestly.
I think he might be.
He might be the first immortal.
I think he might be the Highlander.
Exactly. There could be only one. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned here on Fandom Entertainment. We've got SJU every day. We also have reviews coming out all the time, the big awards contenders, and a lot of big movies hitting theaters as the holiday season approaches. So we'll be covering them all right here on Fandom Entertainment. Thanks for watching.